We are back, baby. Sure, we weren't here last week. I was on the Graybeards with the boys. Thanks again to Aaron Lepresti, Dave Williams, Kelsey Shannon, Gary Martin for letting me hang out and draw the Gollum from Lord of the Rings while this guy was out gallivanting in South Korea. Ooh, look at me. I'm going to South Korea. Aren't I special? I got to see every morning Facebook pictures and stuff. And the best part was he had to wear sleeves every day. And I
feels good to be
it.
back home and sleeveless.
Ugh, says you.
Oh yeah. No, it is. It's good to be back home. Glad to be back. It was a very long, very good trip, but 30 hours straight up on the way over, 32 hours up straight on the way back. Man, my gas tank is running on fumes, but it keeps me going knowing that it's Wednesday night, it's new funny book day, and we get to do our show, and I get to meet somebody brand new that I've never met before.
Wow, your short-term memory's awful. It's like Memento. Dennis, I've known you for years. Good Lord, you go away for a week and you forget me?
What's your name?
God damn it. Son of a...
I'm pretty sure if I had a Quasar 50, it would be signed. Oh, no. Wait, never mind.
Yeah, bring it over. Randy Howell in the chat. Hello, Randy. Dan Genovese. Hello, Blackjack. JP Roca. What is up? Thank you guys. HR in the house. So we'll bring on our guest. He is literally the guy that wrote the book on comic book inking, because I'm holding it right here. It was originally two separate volumes. I got the one where it's one big fat volume. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And without further ado, our guest, Gary Martin. Hello.
Hey, Gary.
Dennis and Andy, what's up?
What is up? And yes, you did write the book. And then, but I did notice before we get into like how you started and everything, I didn't realize they put out an expanded edition. That's what I used for the graphic I made. How long ago was that?
A few years ago, there's actually another volume that came out after that has new material.
Oh.
And yeah, it's they'd been updated. A lot of the technical stuff about contacting editors and page rates and things like that were updated. Talking about earning a living, how much work you have to do per day. I had to update that. And unfortunately, you guys know in comics, page rates are lower now than they were 10, 20
I was
years ago.
going to make a joke and actually say somebody got the first one and then they got the second one. They're like, wait a second. These page rates are updated, but they're lower. Shouldn't they go higher?
Yeah, and I had some problems with my editor with that on the book. That he's saying, well, you don't want to discourage people, from trying to get into comics. So it's like, they got to know, man.
I know. You want me to lie to them?
But that's, in the 80s and 90s, you could make a decent living as an inker. If you could ink 2 pages a day, you can make a pretty good living.
Sure.
Now, 2 pages a day is like minimum wage. That's how much lower the ink rates are.
Yeah, I remember the few things I inked. My ink rate, if I did a page and a half a day, I was fine.
Yeah.
So if I did 7-8 pages a week of inks, I did fine. But then it was like 10 years ago. I got a gig inking Jim Starlin at Marvel on a 100-page graphic novel, which turned into, from the success of it, it turned into 2 more of them and a couple annual. So I inked like over 300 pages. And right out of the gate, oh, yeah, this job is your B rate. And I'm like, what the heck's a B rate?
Right,
like,
B rate, yeah.
Well, every job has a budget, which I had no problem with because that's how businesses should run. You should have budgets. But when they go, and the budget for this job only allows us to pay you your B rate, which, as we both know, means that is now your new rate.
Right.
That
becomes your A rate.
Yeah. I never moved at. I never did a A-rate job again. So
Yeah,
just
and what's interesting is that they pick and choose who they want to pay their rates to.
oh yeah.
It's not like, this is everybody's rate. No, this is your rate.
Well,
And
and I know for a fact because so it was 3 Thanos graphic novels. And the first 2 Jim wrote and drew. Okay, but the third one, Jim had an accident and hurt his hand and couldn't draw. He didn't think he'd be able to draw anymore. Thankfully he is back to drawing, but at the time, the third graphic novel, since he couldn't draw it, they gave it to Ron Lim, which was fine. So I did ink all 3 graphic novels and some annuals, whatever. Point I'm getting to is a couple years after that, they apparently approached Jim again to do another 3-part Thanos graphic novel series, 100 pages each. But Alan Davis and Mark Farmer was the art team. And there's no way in hell Mark Farmer got a B rate.
No.
There's no way.
Yeah, he probably doesn't, absolutely does not have a B rate.
Right. So that's why it was just like, this is such bullshit. So.
And a lot of the stuff that they choose to pay money out to, they have to take it from somewhere. And it's always from the freelancers' page rates. I learned years ago that one of Stan Lee's contracts, he wrote in the contract that his wife was to be paid $1 million for not doing anything, just being his wife.
See, I thought,
where did they get that money?
Right. Exactly. Because I knew and this is all stuff I heard, but when Stan wasn't really involved anymore, and the basis of, oh yeah, you come in and you do this and that, this is your salary. Through the 90s and the 2000s, if I remember right, he was still getting something every year.
Right.
Just because he was Stan Lee. But not really doing anything anymore, which I don't have a problem with.
Well, he didn't do anything for years, but they just kept perpetuating that he was, like in the bullpen every day, calling the shots.
Right. But you're right. It's like, where does it come from? And that's the other thing too, is I'd love to know when stuff was going down in the 90s. And then even in this day and age, I'd love to know if the upper management comes down to the editors and goes, guys, we got to have a meeting. Every one of your salaries is being cut by 10 to 15%.
No,
If you don't,
they would have that. They would
if you don't like it, we understand. You can resign.
Yeah, they had those editorial meetings in exotic places,
right?
And freelancers weren't invited.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I was at a Comic-Con years ago, and they were talking about the old days at Marvel and how Marvel cooked the books and wouldn't let them see it, and all that kind of stuff. And that's when their books were regularly selling in 6 figures.
Oh yeah,
that was common. And so royalties should have been paid out to them, but were not. And so that's what they were talking about. So that's Mark's always, and DC has always been a little sketchy in the business. So anyway, we could talk. We get to the fun stuff. Comic art.
Exactly.
Because that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here.
That's right. Talk about comics and stuff like that. So,
well, we always want to know, since you're new to our show, Gary. We always like to find out, because our viewers like to know who everybody is. How did you get your origin? What's your origin story into comic books? How did you get your break and pop into it?
I'm probably not unlike most artists that work in comics, is that we are fans first, and there's still some fan in me now. although the business, there's still, I still get a thrill when I'm working on, certain characters, but mostly for me, it's as an inker, it's the pencil artist.
Sure.
Some pencil artists fit my likes better than others. And then when you are working on an artist like that, it's not work.
Right.
With any job, art job, in comics especially, there's a lot of I call them take the money and run jobs, where you're doing it just for the paycheck. But the ones that everything clicks, the art's good, the story's good, the pay's good, and sometimes when it's like that, you're not that concerned about the pay. You're
Sure.
doing it for the love of it, and there's a lot of that, and companies unfortunately take advantage of that, the people, doing it for the love of it. But, the last job that I did where I was in that situation where I'm just giggling the whole time was working on David Williams on T-Jaw.
Sure.
That was amazing. And that,
Sure.
the rug pulled out from under it. And, depending on if you want to talk about that or not, I had the unique position to be right in the middle, and listening to lengthy phone calls from both parties involved, and so I had a inside track on what really happened.
Sure.
And it's the whole thing is fascinating. But that's a whole nother show.
Oh yeah.
Going back, Dennis, to your original question. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. So I started out as a fan. Read comics, and I like to draw for fun. Mm-hmm. And in high school, the light bulb went on, the idea of pursuing comics as a career, then I could do my hobby and get paid for it. And so that's when I seriously started pursuing it. And at that time, we're talking late 70s, early 80s, there weren't any art schools, Kubert School didn't exist. You just kind of had to copy stuff and take it to Comic Cons and show it to artists. I grew up in San Jose, California, so there were conventions in the San Francisco area that I got to the point, I was at a comic shop store signing with Terry Austin. And cool. Terry Austin at the time lived in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And he was visiting California to go to a local convention in California, San Jose. And so I went to the signing, and there was nobody there. So it was just me bothering Terry for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was so gracious. Took his time to answer all my questions, and he told me what I'll do. He said, when I get back to New York, I'll mail you some Xeroxes, and you can practice on these, mail them back to me. I'll give you a critique. And I'm like, oh wow. Cool. So within a week or two after he returned, I got this package in the mail from Terry. And it was Xeroxes of Michael Golden pencils to Star Wars and John Byrne X-Men pages.
Oh, nice.
Because that's what he was working on at the time.
Yeah.
So John Byrne X-Men and Michael Golden Star Wars. So that's what I got to practice on.
Oh.
And put vellum over it, tracing paper, inked over the Xeroxes. That was the method back then.
Yep.
Ship them back to make copies of it, ship them back to Terry. He would write a critique with a marker on my Xeroxes and then send them back to me. And so I got all excited and did another one with using his tips, and he did it again. I think we did it 3 times over a period of a couple of months. And then he finally said, you know what? I can't keep doing this. But he said, I think your work is solid enough that where you should come to New York, and I'll take you around to the different publishers.
Oh, wow.
And, see what they say. So I took a trip to New York. He was renting a room in a home in Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed overnight with him in his room. And he was inking. He did, if you remember that Hulk, I think it was Hulk Superman Treasury that Marvel did. Joe Sennett inking John Buscema.
Yes.
And a bunch of different inkers were inking the backgrounds to that job. So if you look at the credits, there's a bunch of names in there. And he was inking the page where Hulk trashes a town.
No way.
And there's like a half splash page.
Yeah.
Yeah. A half splash page, all this rubble and stuff. And he's, they gave it to him on purpose. So that's what he was inking while I was there. And art collection, it's in the bottom drawer. So I pull the drawer out, and there's the drawer was so full of art that the top page was catching on the lip and bending back as I was opening the drawer.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I had to like reach in the drawer and flatten the page. And then I opened it up and I pulled it out, and it was a Hal Foster Sunday Prince Valiant. That's what I was.
Are you serious?
And so Terry, he didn't sell. Yeah, that's the quality of original art he had. Underneath that, Hal Foster was a E.C. Segar Popeye strip. That's the kind of stuff.
I met Terry in the early 90s and visited his home once. And I mean, his house was just, every inch of wall space was covered with original art. I mean, I can remember, I don't remember what the strip was, but above a door, right? So, the little space that you have above a door frame to the ceiling, he had a framed piece of strip art, like everything was covered, and, he doesn't sell his work when he gets it back
out of that chest of drawers. I'm glad he finally emptied that chest of drawers. So Terry told me at the time that he didn't sell his original art that much. Mm-hmm. He kept most of it, and if he wanted an original page, he could trade like X-Men pages or whatever to art dealers, and so that's how he acquired his collection. So the next day, Terry takes me into Manhattan. We go into the Marvel office first. And here I am, this greenhorn from San Jose, California, never been to a big city. It was my first, what do you call those doors that?
Oh my God. Oh, you know what he's talking about, right? Where it's
that rotate.
Cylinder you walk in.
Oh,
yeah.
Now I'm blanking on the name, and I know he probably had it on the tip of his tongue, but I know what you're talking about.
Help us out.
Revolving.
Revolving
door. Yeah.
Revolving door. They'd never been in one before. That's how.
Really? What?
Seriously. And so Terry goes in first, and he's got his portfolio, and I followed him in the same little cubicle because I didn't know. And I have my portfolio, so it becomes like a dryer with tennis shoes in it that we're like fumbling around as this thing is rotating, and it spits us out. And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing." So that was my entrance into the Marvel building. We go up, we go into the offices, and people are running around in jeans and T-shirts, and they're yelling down the halls. And this was the Jim Shooter days.
Now, do you remember, was this 387 Park Avenue South?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been there, so I can visualize it. So
okay. So I got some nice critiques, and then he took me into Jim Shooter's office, and Jim Shooter sat me down.
Uh-oh.
and talked to me for about 15 minutes. And it was really good. He told me some great stuff. And what really struck me is that walking behind Terry, as he walked down the hallway of Marvel, editors would come out of their offices when they saw Terry walk by, just to try to get his attention, to say, "Hey, Terry, are you busy? I got something for you," or just to say hi to him or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And that impressed me as like, okay, I want to be like him.
Sure.
And so that's when I realized the amount of work that he put into his stuff got that attention. And that's where I set my standard, is to try to put a lot of work, into every page that I do. Didn't do me any good. Editors didn't notice it at all. But, I'm not Terry Austin, but I try to be.
So when you started out, were you back then, because you're mostly brush, aren't you? Were you brush back then as well?
Exactly. I was a brush guy, but when I started in comics, I did background work.
Right.
So I eventually moved to New York and made a contact with Dick Giordano.
Oh, cool.
And he hired me as an assistant, and he was a editor at DC at the time. And so he kind of steered me to other artists that needed assistant work. And so I used Terry's techniques for background work.
Oh, okay.
And Giordano recommended, he called it the Bible of background inking. It was the Superman Spider-Man Treasury that was penciled by Ross Andrew.
Yeah.
Figures were inked by Dick Giordano, and all the backgrounds were inked by Terry. And I don't remember if Terry got a credit, but if you look at the backgrounds, his name is everywhere.
Is it really? See, yeah. I knew
billboards and street signs and that kind of thing.
I'll have to look at that again, because I knew Terry was the background guy on Superman Muhammad Ali.
Right. He also did that too.
I didn't know he was I honestly didn't know he was the background guy on that Superman Spider-Man. So I have to
if you look at the cover of that, that great cover of Superman and Spider-Man hovering over the city. If you look at the backgrounds and just look at the crispness and the line weight variety, that just screams Terry Austin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's for those of you trying to learn how to ink, it is a Bible of background inking, and just in terms of, like I say, line weights and choices and textures and things that he was adding and that kind of thing. So I got to get the same kind of opportunity when I was working at DC as a background artist. The Hulk Batman Treasury by Garcia Lopez and Dick Giordano, I inked the backgrounds in that treasury.
Did you really? That's so cool.
That is awesome.
And I was taken home on the subway in New York, Garcia Lopez pencil pages of Batman and Hulk, and looking at them, spreading them out on the bench and looking at them on the New York subway. I absolutely had no idea what I was doing.
Oh.
And it ended up that Mike DiCarlo, I was going to say Dan DiCarlo, Mike DiCarlo also did some inking in that. And he ended up inking the Hulk and some other characters. Dick Giordano inked all the Batman and Joker.
That's funny, because that is the one thing I remember looking through that job, and not as a kid when I bought it, and I didn't buy it when it first came out. I got it, mid 80s, whatever. But once I knew what I was looking at, a professional, right, looking back at it, I knew something about some of the Hulk figures. I was like, that does not look like Giordano's inking.
Yeah, it was different, yeah.
But I couldn't put my finger on who it was. So I think Giordano did all the Joker and Batman and some others. That's how they divided the inking. Well, do you remember? I'm sure you do, but there's a big splash panel in it where that big goopy creature captures the Hulk, and you can kind of see in his chest like the Hulk's behind bars or something. You know what I'm talking about? That page.
I think that was Mike DiCarlo.
That's what I was going to say. That one always stood out to me because I'm like, that figure, that big gloopy figure, those lines are not Dick Giordano lines.
Yeah,
Mike
good
DiCarlo
eye.
has a definitive inking style as well.
Yeah, good eye. So that's what I did in those early days, and I did a bunch of different stuff. Worked on the Superman newspaper strip, and did some stuff for Bob Smith when he was inking Mike Grell on what was that? What did Mike Grell do at DC? It was
not Warlord.
Yeah, Warlord. The story what's throwing me off is the story takes place in a rainforest or a jungle, but it was Warlord.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think about the jungle, not the title, because that was the first job that I inking foliage, leaves and that kind of stuff. And so I think about the jungle. That's why I forgot the name of the book. So I jumped around a lot and was able to ink, some great pencil art and working with really good inkers. And so at that time, top rate at DC was Dick Giordano's rate, and that was $60 a page, and that was the top rate at DC. Everybody else got like Bob, I think, got like around 50.
Yeah.
And the formula was a background inker got 20%. So what's 20% of $50? It's not very much. That's what my page rate was.
Wow.
And I could do maybe 2 pages a day.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, it's funny that the backgrounds, depending on the page, well, I guess, and the artist, backgrounds can take the longest amount of time.
Right, exactly. So I was making $20 a day on my good days. Yeah, I qualified for food stamps. That was my living situation working for DC in the early days. And then I finally started to get my own inking gigs. Dave Manick was the editor of some of the mystery titles like Ghosts and Unexpected. And that's where they would use new artists to try out. Mm-hmm. But good for me, bad for the fans. They would put, green inkers like me on some top pencil artists that would, doing work. So I got to ink Don Heck, Keith Giffen, Steve Ditko.
Holy crap.
Yeah, because it's like Steve Ditko did 3 stories. I think it was for Unexpected, and I came in right at the right time, and Manick gave them to me. So I inked 3 Ditko stories. What the heck were they thinking? I didn't know what I was doing back then.
Yeah, but you know what? That doesn't surprise me, because I was talking to this is why. So I've known John Beatty for 31, 32 years or so, and we shared a studio together, blah, blah, blah. And John told me his first stuff at DC was Zek job, Mike Zek job on a short story in one of those Unexpected Tales or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the way he got that is because he was kind of being mentored by Mike and stuff. And DC kept wanting Mike to do stuff for him. And Mike said, I tell you what, I'll do this, I'll do this one job only if this guy can ink it.
Okay.
So John inked that. But then John also inked, and this kind of relates to what you're talking about, being a new inker, but inking guys like Ditko. John also inked a Don Newton job and a Carmine Infantino job.
Okay, yeah.
Being a newbie. So
same here. And a lot of those guys were so good, and I would look at their work and not being able to figure it out.
Right.
because my eyes and my knowledge wasn't there yet.
Sure.
But talk about a great learning experience. So I did that for a while, and then finally, I used to hang out in Lynn Wean's office. Lynn Wean, talk about an encyclopedia of knowledge. I mean, not just about comics history and writing, but art as well. He would give art critiques to other editors of their artists' work, and then those editors would tell their artists what Lynn said.
Yeah,
that's how much he knew, and he gave me my first really good inking job. It was in Brave and Bold. It was a Batman story over Dave Gibbons.
Oh. Wait, is that the one that has both Batmans on the cover?
Yes.
Oh,
and there's like a modern Batman story that Dave inked himself, and then there's a retro Batman story that I inked.
And he drew it kind of in the 40 style, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh, I gotta go back and look at
that. He gave it to me because he knew I could do that a little bit, kind of cartoony style.
Yeah.
And then that led to my first regular series, which was Blue Devil, over the great Paris Cullens.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a lot of fun. Paris is an amazing pencil artist, and we really clicked. He liked my style, and I didn't really have to do anything different. I just inked him the way I wanted to ink him, and Paris, that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
And then I bounced around at Dees for a while until I got Doom Patrol over Steve Lytle. Yep. Steve Lytle was a great artist. He just couldn't keep a deadline. We started with issue number 1, and we were 3 months ahead. And by the time he finished issue number 1, we were behind.
Well, if I remember right, issue 1 was a double-sized issue.
We were behind with issue number 2, and then further behind with number 3, and so they ended up replacing him. So that's why that didn't work out. But
who'd they replace him with? I'm trying to remember.
Alan Kupperberg.
Oh.
Which is like a total opposite stylistic choice. And I ended up, that's where I ended up leaving Doom Patrol because I just didn't like the work. Eric Larson came in later, but the book was still written by Paul Kupperberg, and the stories were amazingly bad. I mean, I'm saying this public record. They had a storyline where they're introducing a new character, and this guy goes into a shopping mall, and somebody thinks he steals something, and so the shop owner is yelling, "Stop, thief." The security guards pull out guns and start blazing away.
What?
This is in a crowded shopping mall.
Oh my God.
Suspected shoplifter. Well, I couldn't believe that, this is what the story was. So I ended up erasing their little, 6-shooters that security guards that
Did you really?
That Eric drew, and I replaced them with like 44 Magnums, and one security guard has an Uzi. And the editor didn't see it. So it's in the comic book.
Oh my God. I got to find that. I do not have that.
That is cool. So
I quit shortly after that because I just couldn't stand the writing. But the Alan Kupperberg artwork after Paris, that was a hard pill to swallow for me too. The first time I inked him, I really didn't like how I approached him because I didn't know how to handle him because he was so different. So I ended up, that's where the Y-Rag Knit Ram comes from. I reversed the letters in my name and re-lettered the credits and I can't remember what issue it is, like 13 or something around there. Anchor. It doesn't say Gary Martin. It says Y-Rag Knit Ram.
And they didn't change it, huh? Did they mention it to you?
Because the editor, the editors don't edit.
Wow.
Well, that's in the comic, Y-Rag Knit Ram. And my brother was reading the comic, and he goes to the credits. He's like, "Who's this Y-Rag guy? I thought my brother inked this." And then he saw Knit Ram. He goes, "Wait a minute, that's my name backward." And that's when he realized that it was me. So, yeah, my days at DC, I ended up like with Blue Devil. I put Pogo in the backgrounds as much as I could. Like in the Who's Who page of Blue Devil, there's a scene where like demons are coming out of a portal, like there's a gaggle of demons coming out of a portal. And if you look close, Pogo's in that crowd.
Oh, I'm going to have to look. I've got those right back there. So
I did a lot of that stuff just to kind of test the editors. And I never got caught because they just don't look at it.
Right.
So I worked, bounced around for Marvel and DC for a while. And then I got hooked up with Aaron Lopresti on Sludge at Malibu. And that's how I got to know Aaron, working with him on that. And we did, I don't know, like 10, 12 issues, I can't remember, and a couple other side projects. And that was the Studio Source days, the studio in Portland that Aaron talks about a lot. And around that time, I also inked a Conan graphic novel over Paul Glacy, Skull of Set, that Marvel published. And then,
damn, I don't have that.
Because of the Conan stuff, and then I also inked Shauna the She-Devil in the Marvel Presents issues that has Weapon X. Who
drew that stuff?
Yeah, the Barry Smith Weapon X issues also has Paul Glacy's Shauna the She-Devil. Talk about getting overshadowed.
Yeah, right.
I heard that Steve Rude was looking for an anchor for the Dark Horse issues of Nexus, that Nexus was being moved to Dark Horse. And he wanted a new anchor. And so I met him at a Comic-Con, and I knew he was a huge Glacy fan. So I brought pages and showed him the pages, and then asked him if I could do a sample of Nexus, and he agreed. And that's how I got the Nexus gig. And so Steve Rude and I worked together for years after that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember that stuff because I have every issue of Nexus, and that was really nice stuff. I always liked Steve's inks, but I mean, you paired up with him so nicely, and just the feathering, Steve doesn't do a ton of feathering, but the little bit of that, and it looked like we're using to fade out the black. We're using some grease pencil too sometime.
No, Steve liked that rough edge. He didn't like real crisp feathering.
Oh, okay.
He liked a rougher edge. And so that's a dry brush.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I would use dry brush on a lot of the softer edges. And he loved that. I did it once and he loved it. Steve's the kind of guy, he will tell you what he loves and he will tell you what he hates.
Right.
And that's the best situation for artists to be in, because that's how you learn is, by making mistakes. And then if you do something good, then just keep doing that. But Steve's the kind of guy, he doesn't talk about technique. He'll say, he would write notes on the borders of his pencil pages of things for me to do. Like he'd write on the border with an arrow pointing and say, make this shadow scary looking. What technique do I use?
I know. I mean, his pencils from what I've seen, his pencils are pretty tight. They're not. They're not.
Oh, really? There's everything's there.
Yeah.
But there is room for interpretation.
Okay.
And that's the key, is interpreting, what he wants. And
Right.
so for me, doing things like, okay, a scary shape. So I went outside and got a stick from a tree, a twig, and split the end and dipped that in ink and drug it across the page. And he flipped for that. It's like, what did you use here? I was like, I used a twig. He's like, I love that. I mean, so Steve was the kind of guy that thought outside the box. And when you think outside the box too, then he encourages me. So that was, a great learning experience for me. And then I worked with him on the Moth. And,
I still love Steve's stuff here.
And so I wrote the Moth and inked a lot of that. And then Steve is self-publishing now. And we are currently in negotiation for doing another Moth project. So that could be down the road after his current Nexus project. That's,
cool.
Fingers crossed. So after Nexus, I bounced around quite a bit again, and then ended up with David Williams again, and I inked his miniseries for Marvel, the Hulk Power Pack miniseries.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because David, probably more than anybody I know, was born to draw superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
He is the superhero guy. I mean, that's all he thinks about, the superheroes. Sure. You talk to him for 10 minutes about some of his story ideas, it'll blow you away. And so that's the kind of stuff that he plans to do in the future, some of his own projects. And trust me, they're amazing. So I kind of got out of comics for a while after that because of the page rate situation, that we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't afford to work for Marvel anymore. I mean, even doing 2 pages a day, I couldn't afford to do it.
Sure. Wow.
And so I went in, looking for different opportunities. I ended up working for a company that did promotion for private military contractors and for American Department of Defense. And they promoted projects that they want the military to purchase, American military to purchase. And some of the guys in those offices were comic book fans. And I didn't know this at the time. Apparently the military has a culture of comics. A lot of times, on their off time, there's a lot of downtime when they're deployed. And so they pass out reading material, and a lot of that reading material is comic books. And so a lot of these guys that worked in these companies they're veterans, and they appreciate comic art. And so I got my foot in the door doing projects for them. And then that led to them pushing an art director at the American Legion. He was the editor of the American Legion magazine. If you're a veteran or you're familiar with that world, the American Legion is an amazing organization that works with veterans and local community charities, and they've been around since the end of World War I. And so we talked them into letting me draw a 1-page comic strip in their magazine of the American Legion history, starting with, back to World War I. It's called Lore of the Legion. And so it's a 1-page comic. I've been doing that for about 4 years now. It comes out every month.
Do you write it as well?
No, the editor of the magazine has this book of all these amazing stories. And they're sometimes they're celebrities, they're Legion members, they're people who have done amazing feats, they're Legion members. Some of them are veteran stories. Just recently did a story of Babe Ruth. He was an American Legion member.
Oh, wow.
So if you know a veteran that's a member of the American Legion, he'll have the magazine lying around someplace. Because it's like a membership. Like if you
Yeah.
join Costco, you get the magazine. Same thing with the American Legion.
How many?
So I've been
of those,
doing that, like I say, I
over
over 50
say, what do you think?
strips.
How many of those do you think they print a month?
It's in the millions. Their readership is in the millions.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge organization. Yeah, huge organization. I'll be like in a barber shop, and the barber's cutting my hair. You know, they ask typical barber questions. What do you do? And I say, oh, I work for the American Legion magazine. And then it's like a couple of people, I see them, their eyes perk up. And I say, well, you know, people that are waiting to get their haircut.
Yeah.
Are you
do they send
veteran?
you one?
Yes.
Do you get a comp?
Yes,
do you get a comp copy at least?
Pardon me?
Do you get a comp copy at least every month?
No, I have to subscribe to get the magazine. Yeah. So they're, you know, the American Legion is everywhere. They're all over the place. And it's really opened my eyes to that organization. I can't say enough good things about it. They're incredible.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what I'm working on currently. And aside from that, because TJA was shut down, I do commissions and a lot of the portraits. And if you've ever seen me at a show, I tend to make prints from portraits. And I've been doing this for about 10 years. Like here's an example of a.
Oh, damn. Hold
on, we'll screen them.
Hold on, I'm going to get you.
This is Gal Godot. I know.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice. Is that the original, I take it?
So, I'm trying to do like, no. So
That's
stuff
great.
like that. Here's a.
Oh, wow.
This is, again, I'm a brush guy, so this is all brush work.
Holy crap. That's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's not just because it's Chris Hemsworth.
You guys have to, you have to bear with me. This is my backup computer. I was on the live stream of Graybeards with Aaron, David, and Kelsey, and my mic went out. Yeah. And so I had to shut that down and use my laptop. That's what I'm streaming on right now. So I don't have these in a file on my laptop. That's why I'm holding them up the old-fashioned way.
Those are really nice.
So that's the kind of stuff mostly that I'm doing now. And let's see if this will work on this an image. Okay, that one image that I have, can you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, you want me to share it?
Yes, please.
All right. It's big announcement time from Gary sharing an image. There it is. Tell us about it.
Come on, baby. So my laptop is
There you go. We can hear you.
Okay. Kelsey and Aaron and David convinced me to do a crowdfunding and to dip my toe in the water. I decided to do an art book, not a graphic novel. So the work is pretty much done. I would say 95%. There's still a few pieces that I want to put in here. And so it's all black and white. It's all like pieces that I just showed. They're going to be full page. And so far I have north of 80 pieces that will be in here. I'm trying to raise a little bit more.
It looks like it's going to be a magazine size.
Looking at yes. Yes, magazine size. I haven't done the costing yet, like 9x12, if I can get away with it. I don't know if, the costing of that could prevent it. But it would at least magazine size. Cool. And it would be all, like I say, all these black and white illustrations. And I'm looking at a couple of weeks where I would start the crowdfunding on Indiegogo, and I'll make an announcement with that. If you guys out there want updates, I appreciate you guys in the chat giving out my links. Are you going to do a sign up? I just started a Twitter account. It's at G Martin Ink Art. If you guys
are you going to do a sign up?
I'm still trying to figure all that out. Okay. Like I say, I still haven't figured all those nuts and bolts out yet, but I probably will do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just ask Aaron, or if you want, I'll talk. I mean, any of us can walk you through it. It's easy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and all that stuff. Like I say, I still need to do my homework and chase down printers and compare prices and that kind of thing. But I don't think all that will take that long. Like I say, most of this work is finished.
That's cool.
So it's just a question of collecting it and raising the money to print. It will be able to fund me to do my next project, which will be a graphic novel. It'll be a space girl theme story, and it'll be like 60, 70 page story. This project will help fund that, so I can start working on it and not completely rely on a new campaign for that. So it's for me, baby steps, trying to get in on this, and having work that's completed will take a lot of the heavy lifting off of it for me.
Sure. Who is looking at the cover right below the word Destiny? Pretty much right below it. Who's that? Because she looks familiar, but I can't place my finger on it.
The character drawing is Vampirilla. You can't tell.
Okay.
That it's Vampirilla with this close up, but it's an old Hollywood actress that I used as a model for the face.
Oh, okay.
And I can't.
So Randy wants you to confirm, is that your Twitter address so he can post it? Oh, he did.
G Martin Inc.
Okay, so slap a G in front of that, Randy, and you got it.
That's it, Randy. Thank you, Randy, for doing that.
Cool. That is that's nice, man. Those are freaking nice. And I'm a brush guy as well, and I love seeing brush inking. So that is
that's
cool.
A lot of what I do is trying to hang on to that brush inking tradition that, in my opinion, is dying out because of new art supplies and pens and digital.
Oh, yeah.
That the brush.
It's funny, when I started inking at the Kubert School, and even before I went to the Kubert School, I was using a brush, and I always used the brush. And then, when the Jim Lee style or whatever got popular, and it was a lot of 102 inking and stuff, I tried a 102. I mean, I can use a pen, but I'm just much more comfortable with a brush. So
I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way. And I think that it takes longer to learn how to control a brush.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's why the art form is dying out, because people just don't have the patience anymore. They want instant something inked with a brush compared to pens. The lines are different. You get thicks and thins. You get, actual feather lines. You get cursive lines. And if you look at old comic art, like John Romita inking Spider-Man, you see those amazing thicks and thins, Joe Sennett. And
the thing you don't get from a pen is juiciness, and you get juiciness from a brush. Pen
Right.
inking, like you said,
And
using your brush is
the kind of thing that really appealed to me.
right. Let's see.
I'm breaking up here. There, yeah. And so it's a craft to learn, and that was one of the main motivations for me to write the inking how-to book, The Art of Comic Book Inking. That was the reason. And a lot of people responded to that, but the book's been out of print for a while, and I think, like I say, that art form is kind of gone. People just want to see YouTube videos or all these neo-pros doing demos of inking comics, and they're using these modern pens, and I wouldn't call that inking.
Yeah.
They're just going over the lines with the pens, and they're not adding line weights, they're not adding texture, they're not, there's no life to the line.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with the brush and with crow quills as well. Like Klaus Janson and Tom Palmer, Terry Austin. They're all pen guys, and their stuff is magical.
Yeah.
But they were doing that variety line weight and cursive type lines with thicks and thins and that kind of thing.
Do you own the rights to the inking book to where you could reprint it if you want?
I do.
You should crowdfund that.
You're not the first person to.
Well, the reason I say it is because I wrote a book called Drawing Dynamic Comics that came out in 2000. And so, in 2 years, it'll be the 25th anniversary. And I got the rights back from the printer or from the publisher. So I'm thinking about doing a 25th anniversary edition and adding.
Do me a favor and do it. And then I could see how well yours does.
Guinea pig, Andy. I love it.
Yeah. If how-to books sell, then sign me up. So I have, I probably have about 10, new copies of my inking book left, and I'll probably put that in the campaign as add-ons. So for my art book, then you'll be able to pick up the inking as well.
No, that's a great idea. That's a real good idea.
Like I said, it's been for a while. If you go on Amazon, they're selling, for like $100. I mean, ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
So they are in new condition with the blue line artboards intact. They're hard to come by now.
Oh yeah. I mean, I kept mine that way. So
nice.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I found you on Twitter, and you have your Michonne ink that was up on there, done with your brush and India ink. That's very nice.
Yes, that was the one piece that I put up there. And you can see, like, if you look at that piece on Twitter, you can see what we're talking about.
Make it bigger.
They're not dead weight lines, like call it dead weight. That just means, like a consistent line weight. There's a life.
Oh yeah.
Because of the thicks and thins. And
man, I tell you, you would have done if Brian Boland back in the 80s or even 90s was like, I don't want to ink my stuff anymore, you would have been perfect, because Brian was a total brush guy.
I appreciate that. I've done a few Boland recreations, and I did a few for Boland's art rep.
Oh.
He commissioned me to do some, and he told me the same thing. He said he wondered what it would have been like if I would have inked. He said specifically Camelot 3000.
Oh my God! Nothing against Terry and I think
that would
Patterson, but
those were the days when I was living in New York, hanging out at Len Wein's office when I didn't know what I was doing. And I was there when a package came to Lynn from Great Britain, from Poland.
Oh.
And we knew what they were. They were pencils. And so he opened them up and we were literally drooling on them. And DC had a tryout for to find an inker. And Bruce Patterson was the one they chose. And Brian wasn't crazy about Bruce's inks. And probably, you know, Bruce did a great job, but Bruce is a pen guy. Yeah. He's a Crowquill guy. And so he wasn't getting that brush line. There really wasn't anyone at that time that could pull it off. Terry obviously was a pen guy, and he wasn't doing that bowling either, but it's still Terry. And I heard that Brian liked what Terry was doing. It's different, but in this case, different is good. Those two together, but that's why it went from Bruce Patterson to Terry. Right. He just wasn't absolutely 100% thrilled with what Bruce was doing. And those are the days that I was going into the DC offices and I was able to see all that unfold and to be able to look at Boland's. And Boland's pencil pages, they got tighter and tighter and tighter because he was wanting the inker to follow what he was doing. And Boland was literally inking with his pencil. All the lines were there, the feathering was there. They could have just scanned his pencils and cranked up the contrast control, and that's how tight those pencils were. They were amazing.
That's fantastic. That is great. Well, we are going to wrap up. I want to, of course, show Kor-Drath before we do that.
Did you get the Necronite up to show yet? Or have you done that since I've been gone?
You have been sitting here. Have you seen me get the Necronite?
No. I mean, since I've been gone in Korea, did you show
guys? You guys are like an old married couple.
Yeah, I know. There's no sex either, so we are like an old married couple. We sleep in separate beds and everything
in different cities.
And he doesn't buy me nice things anymore either.
What did I not bring you something from Korea? Wow!
Damn it!
Just give it back right now.
He actually, I put my foot in my mouth with that. He actually did bring me back a book from South Korea, trade paperback. My screen. So I'm trying to pull this file up as well. You can see it on the screen, but I'm trying to find the right one to pull up.
So you slept, Dennis, this book halfway around the world, and this is the thing.
Hold on.
Yes, and we had no room for gifts. So, I mean, this thing was jam-packed in there because everything was by hand. We had to put everything in our little suitcase because I was bringing stuff home for my daughter. So I had no extra room.
So he got me the Avengers by Hickman, Opina, Kubert, Weaver, and Diodato, Volume 1 in Korean. And
wow.
I got to admit, I love this. And I haven't opened it yet because, well, he just came over. But I have the American version, so I can't wait to compare it. But Dennis and I both, when we go to comic shows, collect foreign editions of comics. So I was like, dude, if you can find anything, that would be great. So, this is fantastic.
And it was tough because, you go over there, the manga section takes up rows. And then I was like, are there any like American comics? And it's this little tiny section. I'm like, well, there's no Green Lantern. They had like Batman, Long Halloween, stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, but Andy's either Avengers like Captain America or that. And so I was like, well, hopefully he doesn't have the Hickman one and probably not in Korean. So I took a shot.
It is perfect.
You never know. Yeah, it's something like that. What gems you're going to find.
Yeah. Right. I'm an X-Men guy, so I own all the X-Men from everything actually. So I'm doing all the foreign versions. So I have Polish versions and I have Korean versions and Japanese versions and Russian versions and French versions. And I just love it. So I can't read half of them, but I've got all the originals. So I'll just pull it out and set them right down next to each other and just look through them.
Dennis, you can't read half of your American comics. Good Lord. So this is the Necronite. This is the next stretch goal, the Necronite character card. On the front is this artwork by myself and Dan Lawless. On the back are the character stats. So I will be uploading this to the campaign page soon so people can see it. Let me see if I can find the actual shot that has the stats on it. I know where it is. So right there. I think that's it. Let's hope. Yep, there it is. So there's the actual front and back of the Necronite character card. That is the next stretch goal everybody will get. So that'll be 4 playable characters, one map, the Shattered Reach everybody gets. And then after that, we'll do more stretch goals, of course.
I figured out all their abilities. I've got those all down on there in the in the SRD comparable version, and I am going to be working on the ICRPG version of it, so that we'll have everything ready to go. So yeah, it's coming along nice.
There you go. So yeah, 76 pages. If you like Conan, Game of Thrones, Dungeons and Dragons, this book is for you. Kor-Drath's tribe was overrun by a legion of the undead sent by the Necronite. Of course, Kor-Drath doesn't know that, and now he's out for blood. He's out for vengeance to find out why his tribe was slaughtered, his specific tribe. He wants vengeance, and he will have it.
So this is sword and sorcery with zombies?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. And yeah, it's 76 pages. It is 5 different covers, 2 different T-shirts. There's an artist edition book, oversized, black and white, scanned from my original art. So it's like you're holding the art in your hands. Of course, we've got the Bud Root cover. So many different things for you to choose from. It's on Indiegogo and will be on Indiegogo until we start shipping in the fall. And it is on Kickstarter with 5 days left. We combine the totals, and that's why we have already unlocked the $80,000 stretch goal, because you combine them, boom, we have nailed it. So now on to 90. So guys, Randy is posting the links because he is awesome. And go check it out. And the links are in the descriptions below as well. So please go check that out. And of course, follow Gary on all the social media stuff that we've posted or Randy has posted for us. And Gary, thank you for taking the time today to talk with us.
I appreciate it, you guys. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to be had.
Yeah, man. And we'll have to talk. You know, I do a live stream every now and then, so we'll have to talk more once you get your main computer back up and running and stuff.
I get my computer hammer out.
That's right.
Yep, we just got Andy and I just did the movie review for 65 with Adam Driver, so watch that for on each of our channels. And while I was in Korea, I did get to see Dungeons and Dragons since my DMZ tour got canceled. So we got to see that. Well, Andy's going to see it, and then we'll be putting out the movie review for that as well.
That's right. So we will be back next Wednesday for sure. And we do have a guest, which we'll announce later. It's a creator that has a project on Indiegogo right now. And we'll announce that in the next few days. Be back next Wednesday, if not before. And until then, everybody take care and have a good night.
Live long and prosper.
Damn, gang suck.